Discover 11 spine-chilling true tales of sinister horror that are exposed after midnight. The clock's hands crept toward 12 as the Peterson house settled into its eerie silence. It looked like your typical suburban home: white picket fence, well-manicured lawn, but after dark, it transformed into a claustrophobic cage. Mia could feel the sinister energy building, each creak of the floorboards resonating through her bones like a warning bell. Shadows danced menacingly along the walls. Something was off. Just last week, their sleepy neighborhood was alive with laughter and the smell of barbecue smoke. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, reports flooded the neighborhood's Facebook group: missing pets, strange sounds, a presence lurking in the trees. Mia felt a tightness in her chest and dismissed it as teenage angst, but deep down, dread gnawed at her. She glanced at her little brother, Ethan, who was supposed to be asleep but instead whispered to someone unseen in the darkened corner of the room. "It's just my friend," he said with a grin too wide for comfort. Mia brushed it off. Kids adored imaginary friends. But panic gripped her the next night when Ethan vanished. The house felt cold, every room just a chamber of secrets. She rifled through the Facebook group, heart racing, discovering posts about neighbors that sent shivers down her spine. 4 doors down, Mrs. Hargrove's cat had gone missing weeks ago, and no one saw or heard anything. The comments section was full of accusations, theories, each word heavier than the last. Mia's eyes widened at a post about a masked figure seen haunting the streets after dark. Were they all losing it? Or did the perfect suburb hide something far worse? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mia gripped her phone tightly, dread suffocating. The walls felt like they were closing in, shadows pooling deeper at the corners of her vision. She tried calling Ethan's name, but it echoed back mockingly through the empty house. Then came that feeling again, prickling at the back of her neck. She wasn't alone. A sharp intake of breath. Was there someone? Or something? Watching her? Her skin crawled. She had to find Ethan. She burst into action, thrilling adrenaline coursing through her but cold fear lingering in the air. A figure darted past the window. She froze. A fleeting glimpse of a mask. The smell of autumn leaves and decay permeated her senses as she steeled herself against the escalating terror. Neighbors she trusted suddenly turned into shadows, their faces betraying more than they ever revealed. As she stepped outside, the world felt thicker, darker. The charming neighborhood transformed into a twisted nightmare, each friendly wave turned sinister. Then, she remembered the rumors about her father's former partner, and how the unthinkable could unravel. Mia turned, heart pounding, the horizon holding more horrors than she could comprehend. Would she find Ethan before the dawn broke? Or were they all woven into this web of dread, trails leading them to an unimaginable darkness? The echoes of whispers filled the air, heel marks of fear creeping closer as the clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of a new terror unfolding. What secrets about her neighbors would she unearth before it was too late? Mia stepped out into the night, the cool air stinging her skin. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that morphed into grotesque shapes. The neighborhood, once familiar, now lay twisted in an eerie stillness. The oppressive silence was deafening, punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves that whispered secrets from the dark. Where was Ethan? She called out again, a desperate echo swallowed by the night. Panic surged within her, but she forced herself to breathe deeply. The shadows felt alive, moving, watching. She stepped cautiously onto the porch, scanning the yard. The prickling sensation on her neck intensified. Could it be the masked figure they spoke of? The idea made her heart race even faster. As her feet carried her down the path, the chill of dread sunk deeper. In the distance, she heard laughter, high-pitched, childlike, and distorted. It was Ethan's voice. It wasn't right. It was too far away, too playful. No child's laughter should sound so unnerving at midnight. Mia rushed toward the sound, her breath quickening. She thought about calling the police, but part of her feared the terror that would unfold if she did. What if the neighbors were involved? Each face she passed in the darkness took on a sinister hue. Had they known this would happen, then, she saw a flicker of movement in the park at the end of the street. Barking echoed through the darkness, another pet gone wild. There, illuminated by a street lamp, stood a figure tall, cloaked, its face obscured by an ornate mask. Mia froze. The air thickened around her, an invisible grip tightening. "Ethan!" She screamed, voice breaking. But the figure gave no response. Instead, it raised an arm, pointing toward the darkened trees. A chill crept down her spine, something ancient and hungry waking inside the woods. Ethereal voices rose from the shadows, echoes of laughter mixed with twisted cries. Mia hesitated, torn between running back home and moving forward. But that laughter, it lured her deeper. She was drawn in, compelled to discover the truth. She edged closer to the park, glancing around for any sign of movement. The figure vanished into the night like smoke, leaving only dread in its wake. A swing swayed gently, creaking. She was almost there when Ethan's whisper sent electric shockwaves through her. "Help me!" She turned sharply. The shadows danced around her, swirling, concealing a horror she was not ready to face. Was it coming from the trees? Or was it hidden in plain sight among the neighbors? Mia stepped off the path, into the cool embrace of the park. Every step felt weighted, as if she waded through thick fog. The laughter was gone now, replaced by an eerie silence that pressed down on her thoughts. The wind howled as if it had gathered secrets of the night, brushing past her with ominous intent. "I'm coming!" she called, her voice quaking. She stumbled forward, the darkness swallowing her up piece by piece. Then came a noise, a raspy breath, heavy and deliberate. Something was close, perhaps lurking, or waiting. Mia's heart pounded louder than her thoughts. Was it Ethan, or something that wished to keep him? The world around her began to spin as she turned back toward the street, dread sinking its claws deeper as she realized she hadn't checked behind her. What awaited her in that suffocating darkness? Would she find her brother, or was she stepping into a twisted trap woven by her own neighbors? The mask materialized from the shadows behind her, punctuating the night like a knife's edge. As she turned, fear gripped her mind. What were they hiding? And would she survive to uncover the chilling truth? Mia spun around, her pulse quickening, and the masked figure loomed closer, shrouded in the darkness. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the entire night had taken a breath, waiting. The figure shifted, tilting its head, as if sizing her up. Her eyes darted left and right, searching for an escape. Should she shout again? Scream for Ethan? But a voice inside her whispered to stay silent, to not draw any more attention. She could hear her heart within her ears, the pounding a steady metronome against the backdrop of silence. "Ethan!" She tried to call, though it came out as a hoarse croak. Small in the face of that terror before her, the figure stepped forward, the rustle of fabric breaking the quiet. Each movement projected a sense of purpose, and Mia stumbled back, her foot catching on a root. She stumbled, falling hard to the ground. The figure paused, a shadow darting between them, the fleeting glimpse of a child. Had Ethan run into the park? No. The figure was too quick, too controlled. It reached out, fingers grasping through the air. In a panic, Mia scrambled on her hands and knees, lungs burning. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the mask. Designed with intricate symbols that gleamed in the sparse light, it seemed to pulse with life, a living entity that thrived on fear. "Help me please!" Ethan's voice again, but this time it carried a quivering desperation, rasping through the stillness like an echo of anguish. The call suffocated her resolve. She bolted, racing away from the figure and deeper into the park, heart in her throat. The laughter returned hollow and taunting, multiplying into a cacophony that swallowed her in a blur of sound. With every step, the woods closed in, branches clawing at her, whispering threats that danced around her ears. Mia shoved through a thicket, skin scraping against rough bark. She felt the wetness of leaves beneath her hand, slick with the night's dew, and kept moving, driven by instinct, the primal urge for survival. She barely registered where she was, lost in a maze of darkened trees and obscured paths. The laughter grew louder, morbid. "Where are you, Ethan?" She crashed through the undergrowth, desperation clawing at her throat. Suddenly, a light flickered ahead. Hope ignited in her chest. It seemed to pulse in rhythm with her racing heart. She moved towards it, thoughts of Ethan pushing her onward. When she broke through into a small clearing, she found what she feared more than darkness: a circle of figures, their faces obscured by matching masks, standing in silence. Candles flickered around them, framing a scene painted in shadows and flickering light. At the center of the circle, Ethan knelt, eyes wide but empty, almost lost to the world. "Mia." He looked up, relief washing over his features, but it morphed into horror as he pointed behind her. She turned, dread churning within her as the masked figure emerged from the shadows once more, but now with others at its side, closing in around her like wolves on a frightened lamb. They began to chant, a low and eerie hum that filled the air, vibrating against Mia's skin. The sound twisted through her mind, pulling her into their dark embrace. Mia felt herself sway, the world spinning as she fought against the encroaching fog in her mind. "Get away from him!" she screamed, but it felt hopeless. They didn't even blink. What were they doing? Were they all in on it? Panic surged as she realized she was on the brink not just of losing Ethan, but of losing herself. The circle tightened. The masked faces were no longer just strangers. They were the town, the neighbors, the hidden darkness waiting to be unleashed. As they continued their chant, the light from the candles began to dim. The darkness around them felt alive, hungry, closing in like the jaws of a beast ready to devour. "Ethan!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her voice, echoing against the oppressive night. The masked figures began to shuffle closer, their intentions clear. Something terrible was about to unfold. And in that moment, amid the shadows and the chanting, an unbearable truth settled on Mia. There was no escape. How long could she fight before the darkness consumed her whole? Could she save Ethan? Or had they both crossed into a realm where no one could find them again? Mia's heart raced as shadows encroached upon her, freezing her in place. The masked figures moved as one, a chilling wave of intent washing over her. She could feel the weight of their gaze, 1,000 silent judgments pressing down. Fear tightened its grip, making it hard to breathe. "Leave him alone!" she shouted, her voice hoarse and desperate. Ethan remained a statue in the center, his eyes wide but vacant, like he was caught in the spell that ensnared them all. The flickering light danced over his face, revealing a flash of something terrible in his expression, recognition mixed with resignation. That small, fleeting moment almost broke Mia's heart. The chanting swelled, growing louder and more discordant. It was as if the very trees responded, leaning in to listen to the sinister ritual unfolding in the night. Mia forced herself to look at Ethan, their eyes locking, a connection woven through fear and love. "Fight it!" she urged, hoping against hope he could hear her. But the glimmer of her hope shattered as his expression turned blank, a puppet embracing its strings. "Stop it!" she screamed, feeling the pull of the chant, a dark melody that clawed at her mind. The figures advanced, closing the circle, their movements synchronized as if they had rehearsed such moments 1,000 times. Mia turned, searching frantically for a way out, but the thicket she emerged from now seemed an impenetrable wall, the thickness of the woods pressing in like an audience to a tragedy. The laughter lingered, a mocking echo in her ears. Suddenly, amid the chanting, a figure stepped forward from the circle. Taller, more imposing, its mask glimmered with an intensity that rivaled the moonlight. It stretched out an arm, a gloved finger pointing toward Mia, drawing her in closer against her will. "Join us," it rasped, the voice smooth and silky, enough to send shivers racing down her spine. We can save him, Mia, but it requires a sacrifice. Questions swirled in Mia's mind. What kind of sacrifice? The kind that demanded blood? The dread of losing Ethan fueled her anger. I want to join you, she shouted, clenching her fists, grounding herself with the rage boiling within. Then face the darkness, the masked figure whispered, the words steeped in malice. The chanting intensified, wrapping around her like ribbons of doom. Mia's thoughts turned desperate. She scanned the ground, searching for anything, a stick, a rock, anything to defend herself. But all she found were the dried leaves, whispering sinister secrets beneath her frantic feet. The circle tightened, and to her horror, Ethan was being drawn closer to them, eyes glazed over. Ethan! She screamed, but it felt futile. How could she reach him? The darkness was spilling out, engulfing the clearing, and she began to feel lightheaded, a pull dragging at her consciousness. As if sensing her struggle, the masked figures responded with a renewed fervor, their chants harmonizing into a scream that shook the earth. Mia staggered back, throwing her arms up instinctively as shadows reached for her. The smell of earth and decay flooded her senses, anchoring her in reality just long enough. With a primal scream, she hurled herself forward, plunging toward Ethan, willing herself to break the spell before it fully took hold. Hold on, Ethan. I'm coming, she cried, but as she lunged, everything shifted. A strong hand clasped around her wrist, stopping her dead in her tracks. Do not resist, the figure pleaded with a voice edged with a chilling allure, pulling her into a whirl of fear and doubt. In that moment of contact, a rush surged through her. For a fleeting instant, she felt both the end of her fight and the beginning of despair. But then a sudden thought flared: what exactly did sacrifice mean? Mia could not let go of Ethan, she could not simply become another shadow in the night, and just as she struggled to shake the grip, the sky above darkened, an ominous rumbling echoing through the trees. You want a sacrifice? She whispered fiercely, clenching her jaw. Then let it be me. Would the darkness accept her offering? Or would it consume them both? The figures paused for the briefest moment, the chanting hesitating as if considering her defiance. Then, unyielding, the darkness pressed in closer, demanding its due. The grip on Mia's wrist tightened, sending waves of panic coursing through her veins. The masked figure leaned closer, its breath cold and heavy against her skin. Fear coiled like a serpent inside her, squeezing the air from her lungs. No! She gasped, thrashing against the hold. Let him go. This isn't what he wants. But the figure's grip felt like iron, unyielding and merciless, drawing her deeper into the circle. The chanting resumed with a force that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the night. The sound burrowed into her ears, a cacophony that turned her blood to ice and her limbs to lead. Ethan remained transfixed, oblivious, floating deeper into the dark sea of shadows. She could see the shimmer of despair in his eyes, pupils dilating in fear as he gradually sank into the madness surrounding them. Mia's heart shattered at the sight. The man she loved was slipping away, and she was powerless to save him. We are strong together, the commanding figure murmured, its voice a twisted lullaby. Join us willingly, and he shall be freed. Mia felt an almost overwhelming compulsion to surrender, as if the shadows were whispering secrets of her own fears and insecurities, promising safety in exchange for her submission. She fought back, battling to clear her mind, to focus on Ethan, to remember the warmth of his smile and the way his laughter felt like sunlight cascading through darkness. Fight it! She screamed, hoping her voice could reach him across the void. The chanting momentarily dimmed, but it didn't break the spell, it only deepened the dread. As she pulled against the figure's grip, her eyes darted to the surrounding trees, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal hands reaching out for her. Please, Ethan. You have to come back to me. The words broke free from her throat, raw and desperate, but the shadows shifted as if they had a will of their own. The ground trembled beneath her, and the air grew thick, suffocating. She felt an unnerving sensation of being watched beyond the masked figures. A sea of hidden eyes appeared in the darkness. They were hungry. The taller figure shifted slightly, revealing scars etched into the mask, a tapestry of suffering and loss that chilled her to her core. It was no ordinary mask, it was alive with past horrors, feeding off the despair that clung in the air like fog. In a burst of adrenaline, Mia recoiled, wrenched her wrist free, and stumbled backward into the circle. She faced Ethan, pleading with every fiber of her being. "Ethan! You must hear me. You're stronger than this." His face flickered, shadows clouding his features. Yet, there was a moment the faintest flicker of recognition fluttered across his eyes. A surge of hope surged through her, igniting a fire inside. "Remember our promise. We can't let them take us." But just as hope twisted into determination, the chanting reached a deafening crescendo, blurring everything into chaos. The world began to spin not just around her, but within her. Dark figures advanced, their movements a blur, and the masks bore down on her like ominous storm clouds. "Sacrifice!" They cried in unison, their voices rising to a shriek that reverberated in her skull. In that heart-stopping moment, a choice loomed over Mia, a visceral urge to act, a primal instinct to either flee or fight, to let the darkness claim her or to plunge into the abyss herself. With a scream that echoed through the trees, she made her decision. "Mia, no." Ethan's voice pierced through the chaos, anchored in love and terror. But she was already moving, casting herself into the depths of the night, the shadows swallowing her whole. Was this her end? Or a new beginning in the dark? And as her body met the shadows, a dreadful silence fell upon the clearing, leaving only the echo of her defiance hanging in the air. Mia plunged into the darkness, gasping as the world wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. Coldness seeped into her bones, a deep chill that reached into her core, threatening to extinguish her spirit. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, but the grip of the shadows clasped at her limbs, pulling her deeper into their inky embrace. The silence echoed, it felt deafening. Was this the end? Or was it merely a prelude to something worse? She felt the presence of uncountable eyes watching her, a swarm of whispers swirling just out of comprehension. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice lost in the darkness. It carried no weight, no urgency, it dissipated like mist. Stumbling forward, she sought something, anything solid to grasp, but only the cold earth crumbled beneath her feet. As she moved, memories flickered through her mind, fragments of laughter and warm smiles intertwined with dark images of Ethan's eyes fading, consumed by the shadows. Mia felt a pang of gut-wrenching despair. She couldn't let this engulf them both. A flash of light broke through the veil of night, a dim glow flickering ahead. Her heart raced, hope igniting briefly amidst the dread. She clawed her way toward it, each step a battle against the suffocating darkness. The light expanded, revealing a grotesque scene as she approached. Shadows moved in a grotesque dance around a pentagram drawn crudely in the dirt, the figures standing within it frantically reciting their chants with manic fervor. The air crackled with energy that felt both electric and deadly. Mia halted, taken aback. The masked figures, grotesque and twisted, were not just shadows, they were shapes filled with pain, anger, sorrow. Each mask held a story, a tortured narrative etched into its very fabric. They were like a gallery of despair, waiting for the next act of sacrifice. Suddenly, they turned as one, their collective gaze falling on Mia. The chanting crescendoed, the tongues of the figures twisting into a horrific melody of wicked glee. "Join us!" they cried, their voices a confluence of desperation and delight. A wave of dark energy surged towards her, threatening to swallow her whole. Mia stumbled backward and collapsed, grasping at the gritty earth as if it could anchor her. Panic surged, and for a moment, she felt the icy fingers of surrender creeping up her spine. "No!" she shouted, clenching her fists as if to crush her fears. "You won't take me." With a fierce resolve, she summoned every scrap of strength and pushed herself upright. The glow ahead pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Were they drawing her in? Or was it her chance to fight back? The masked figures advanced, eyes gleaming, chants weaving into a terrifying harmony. Mia backed away, glancing frantically for Ethan. He was still lost somewhere within the shadows, but she could feel the tether between them thin but unbreakable. Mia. His voice cut through the haze, desperate and raw. I'm here. She cried, heart racing. She needed to reach him, and the light felt like a lifeline. With a shuddering breath, she sprinted forward, determined to break the hold of the darkness. But the masked figures surged onto her, arms outstretched, their cries merging into a twisted song that pierced her very soul. Suddenly, she felt at the heat of their hatred and desperation, coiling around her like a serpent. Her thoughts raced, spiraling into chaos. But somewhere in that chaos, a thought emerged. If she could draw power from her love for Ethan, perhaps she could turn that darkness back. Together. She yelled, calling out across the void. We can overcome this. Fight the shadows, Ethan. Remember us. The chanting jolted, momentarily disrupted, as Ethan's voice responded, fragmented but clear. Mia. I hear you. I'm fighting. With that, she steeled herself, and for the first time, she stood tall against the approaching shadows. The air crackled with potential, the line between sacrifice and salvation blurring in the ethereal light. Just as she drew her breath to shout again, a low rumble roared through the ground below, shifting the very core of the clearing. The shadows recoiled, their masks twisting in anguish. And then, with a sudden jolt, the ground shattered beneath them, sending her tumbling into darkness once more. As the abyss opened wide, Mia grasped for anything solid, her scream swallowed by the void. What waited below? Would she find Ethan, or was the final descent into oblivion waiting to claim them both? Mia fell deeper and deeper, the sheer terror of the plunge swallowing her whole. Darkness wrapped around her as she tumbled, a violent whirlwind of panic. She could hear the echoes of the chanting fading above, merging with her cries. Each heartbeat pounded against her chest like a drum signaling her impending doom. Then, the freefall stopped. She landed with a thud on a cold, damp stone surface, gasping for breath. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of decay. Mia blinked, trying to adjust to the dimness surrounding her. Shadows flickered against the walls, dancing like phantoms. Ethan. She called out again, struggling to stand. Her throat was raw, her hope waning. Where are you? The silence that followed was oppressive, amplifying her fear. As she regained her footing, she realized she wasn't alone. Shapes shifted in the murky light, their outlines distorted and vaguely human. The aching stillness around her pulsed with an unnerving energy. Mia's heart raced, not knowing whether to move forward or retreat. Then she saw them, dull reflections of faces she thought she recognized, their eyes sunken, skin pallid and stretched tight, mouths twisted into silent screams. Help us, one of them whispered, a raspy voice that slid into her mind like ice. Get away from me. She shouted, backing away into the cold stone, the chill radiating through her. Join us. The voices surrounded her, a cacophony of despair and longing that wrapped around her like a net. There is no escape, we all belong to the shadows. Mia shook her head violently. No. I want to be like you. As the shadows closed in, she spotted a glimmer of light at the far end of the cavern. A pathway, illuminated softly, arched and beckoned her. It felt like a promise of salvation, but dread curled in her stomach, warning her of the unknown. Ethan. I'm coming. She yelled, bolting towards the light. The others rushed forward, their faces a mixture of anguish and desperation. Stay. Stay with us. They cried, their hands grasping for her. She felt their cold fingertips brush against her skin, sending chills through her body, igniting a primal flight response. Mia surged ahead, every instinct pushing her to that light. She dashed down the passage, the air growing thicker with each stride. It slithered around her, suffocating. Yet, the glow intensified, promising escape from the agonizing wails that followed. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and shadows erupted from the walls, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her back. You cannot leave, they hissed, their voices melding into an angry chorus. Fear clawed at her throat. No. Let go. She kicked wildly, trying to shake them off, but they only tightened their grip, dragging her slowly toward the abyss forming beneath her. Mia felt the warmth of the light slip further away. Was this the end? Or a new beginning entwined in horror and sacrifice? With a final surge of adrenaline, she grasped a rugged stone, anchoring herself. Ethan! Fight! I'm here! She screamed into the darkness, feeling the pull of the shadows relent momentarily. But the tremors intensified again, a thunderous roar resonating through the cavern. The walls began to crack and crumble, tiny rocks scattering like a rain of betrayal. Then she heard a faint shout above the cacophony, echoing directly to her heart. Mia! It was Ethan, raw and desperate, slashing through the darkness like a beacon. Ethan! The shadows howled in rage, pushing her further down the precipice. With every ounce of willpower, Mia clawed herself towards the light, heart hammering, soul screaming, would she make it to him? Or was the reality of their fate rewritten in shadows, forever lost in the abyss? A moment of stillness lingered, as if the world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable collapse, and then, the ground gave way completely. What awaited her in that eternal fall, and would she and Ethan survive the darkness together, or be consumed by the void, marked by sacrifice? Mia plummeted, air rushing past her like a freight train. She could barely think, her heart racing uncontrollably. Time lost meaning. Was she falling forever? In that dizzying space, her thoughts spiraled, fear clawing at her mind. Then, she splashed down into ice-cold water. The shock was electric, jolting her senses back. She thrashed, eyes wide, scanning her surroundings. No light. Every direction submerged in blackness, swallowing her panicked breaths. Mia! The sound of Ethan's voice cut through the murky silence, barely audible but like a lifeline. She swam instinctively toward it, arms flailing, desperation spurring her onward. Where are you? She shouted, hoping the water could carry her words to him. Silence returned, heavy and oppressive. Tiny bubbles grazed her cheeks as she treaded water, the chill seeping into her bones. She felt something brush against her leg, a slimy tendril that sent a tremor through her body. No, 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 she gasped, heart hammering, forcing herself to stay focused. Then came the sound, a grotesque slithering noise, echoing in the water. Whatever was down here was alive and hungry. Panic surged again. She kicked her legs hard, propelling herself toward the last direction of Ethan's voice. Ethan! She screamed, each syllable muffled in the water. A flicker of light appeared, glimmering in the distance. Hope ignited a fire within her. I'm coming! She yelled, every ounce of willpower pushing her to swim for that beacon. The shadows roiled beneath her, and she could feel them pulling. Let me go! Her voice broke, swallowed by the dark. She broke the surface with a gasp, lungs screaming for air. Frantically, she scanned the dimly lit cavern, trying to discern the source of the light. A narrow opening shimmered just ahead, water cascading down like a waterfall of stars. The glow was inviting but tinged with something sinister, a sense of urgency that electrified the air. Dread coiled tight in her stomach. As she reached the edge of the opening, the ground trembled again, sending ripples through the water. Ethan, please! Her voice echoed off the walls, bouncing back with mocking clarity. Then she spotted him, emerging from the darkness, Ethan's familiar outline outlined against a patch of light seeping through. Relief surged through her. Mia! He shouted, urgency lacing his tone. He reached out, hands trembling. You made it. But she didn't feel relief, she felt cold dread. The shadows writhed behind him, swirling like a vortex, and a gut-wrenching chill pulsed through her. Ethan, behind you! She yelled, voice cracking as tendrils of darkness whipped toward him, curling like smoke. Mia! He turned just as a shadow lunged, wrapping around his waist. No! She lunged forward, but the water resisted, heavy and thick. Fight it, Ethan! Fight! Everything in her screamed to save him, yet the shadows twisted tighter, their dark forms tugging at his very essence. Suddenly, echoes filled the chamber, like whispers from the void, chanting a rhythm that vibrated in her bones. Join us, become one with the shadows. It reverberated around her, seducing her to give in, to succumb to the pull. Mia's heart raced, panic intertwining with rage. No! She screamed into the darkness, fighting the urge to surrender. He's not yours. Her hands clawed at the water, as she pushed herself onward, determined to reach him, but the shadows advanced, a tide of despair creeping closer. The cavern began to shake violently. Mia, help me! Ethan cried out, eyes wide with terror as the darkness closed in around him. With desperation flooding her veins, Mia dove beneath the surface again, swimming furiously towards Ethan. Would she reach him in time? Or would they both be consumed by the very shadows they fought against? As the water churned around her, she grasped the flickering hope of the light ahead. Would it lead them to salvation, or draw them deeper into the abyss? And in the chaos, she felt the unseen hands of despair closing in, a gripping, while presence lurking just out of sight. Would she succumb, shackled by the horrors beneath, or would they break free, united against the inevitable darkness? Mia swam hard, muscles screaming against the icy grip of water. Every stroke felt like a battle against unseen forces dragging her back into the dark. The flickering light ahead pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan! She called again, her voice dissolving in the water, the darkness swallowing her fear. With one last desperate burst of energy, she surged upwards, breaking through the surface. The air felt frigid against her skin, but relief was short-lived. Ethan was still in the grips of shadow, the darkness constricting around his chest like a vice. She could see panic etched on his face, eyes wide and wild, searching for her. Mia, I can't hold on. His voice broke, desperation cracking through the chant echoing through the cavern. It hurts. No. You have to fight it. Panic clawed at her throat, but the urgency fed her resolve. She reached for him, arms stretched wide, but the water felt thick and viscous, refusing to let her in. A shadow lunged up from below, tendrils swirling and reaching, aiming for Mia with ravenous intent. Get away! She screamed, thrashing against the dark tendrils that encroached upon her. The depths of the water began to swirl, drawing her down, pulling her into a suffocating gravity. Mia! Ethan cried, and the sound was so broken, so raw, that it pierced through the haze of fear. She locked eyes with him, and suddenly, the shadows hesitated, as if drawn into their own hesitation. Hold on. Just hold on. She felt a pulse of warmth within her, a flicker of determination ignited by the terrified plea in Ethan's voice. Gathering herself, she focused her energy. I'm coming! She shouted fiercely. She dove into the depths, swimming deeper. The water darkened, the pulsing light above shrinking into a distant memory. Shadows danced around her, sliding against her skin like ice, groping, seeking weakness. She reached for the darkness itself, pushing back with all her will. Light surged back, illuminating the blackness momentarily, exposing forms writhing in a chaotic frenzy. They recoiled, and in that moment, she forced herself back up toward Ethan. Bursting to the surface, she glimpsed him caught in the shadow's grip, thrashing helplessly. Ethan! I'm right here. She could see his eyes dart from the shadow that held him and back to her. But those dark forms seemed to throb with a life of their own, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat beneath the waves. Ethan's strength was faltering. Mia was terrified he wouldn't be able to hold on. Do you trust me? She shouted, her voice cutting through the cold silence. It was a question that demanded everything. More than anything. He yelled back, voice garbled and desperate. Mia's heart raced, fueled by a surge of hope forged in fear. On the count of 3, let go. Are you crazy? He looked horrified. Just do it. Okay. 1, 2. As she counted, shadows writhed in anticipation. 3. She yelled, and in that moment, she propelled forward, thrusting her arms around him as he released his hold on the darkness. The shadows screamed, flailing wildly, trying to pull Ethan back into their depths, but Mia anchored him, her strength now a ferocious tide pushing against the darkness. The pull of the unseen hands wrapped around them, but their combined force broke through the whirlwind. They surged towards the shimmering light, closer, closer, and then the shadows roared, an agonized sound that reverberated through the cavern, ripping through the silence. Mia's chest tightened as the very walls of the cave seemed to shudder in response, and then, suddenly, the light blazed, enveloping them in warmth. Mia gasped, feeling the shadows recoil as they were ripped away, releasing Ethan completely. But even as they emerged, gasping into the safety of light, she sensed a lingering thread, a whisper of despair clinging in the air, chilling her spine. What was that? Ethan gasped in confusion, eyes darting around. I don't know, she whispered, fighting against the tremors in her hands. But something is still here. Just then, from behind the shimmering light, they heard it again, unmistakable. The whispering chorus echoed through the cavern. Join us, become one with the shadows. Mia's blood ran cold. The darkness may have retreated, but it was far from finished. The cavern was alive with something sinister, pulsating with a hunger that awaited them patiently, lurking just beyond their temporary safety. Would they truly escape the shadows? Or was this just the beginning of their torment? Mia and Ethan grasped each other's hands, the warmth radiating between them, stark against the lingering chill of the cavern. The light pulsed softly, a fragile beacon amid the encroaching darkness. We have to keep moving, she urged, scanning their surroundings. The whispering voices taunted them, growing louder, each phrase a chill against her skin. Join us, become one with the shadows. The chorus echoed through the damp air, weaving threads of dread into their souls. Mia's heart hammered in her chest. She could feel the shadows lurking, waiting for the moment of weakness to reclaim what was theirs. This way! She shouted, pulling Ethan toward a narrow passage just behind the glowing barrier. With every step, the whispers intensified, as if the darkness was enraged by their escape. They moved swiftly, the terror fueling their momentum. As they plunged deeper into the darkness, moments of flickering light danced around them like stars trying to break through a storm. But with every flicker, the shadows pulled tighter, the air thickening as they advanced. Are we safe? Ethan asked, his voice quivering as they navigated the winding path. For now, she replied, though her own certainty faltered. We just need to find an exit. Suddenly, the ground shook, a low rumble reverberating through the cave. Mia stumbled, gripping the wall for support, a sense of dread settling like lead in her stomach. Not again! She gasped. Then the shadows surged forward, dark tendrils writhing as if alive, grasping hungrily at their ankles. We can't let them pull us under. Mia shouted, yanking Ethan back just in time to avoid the clawing darkness. Hold on. They darted down another corridor, each step pushing against a weight that felt as if it was trying to smother their very essence. The air tasted stale, and with every breath, Mia felt the walls closing in. Their feet splashed through shallow water, a reminder that danger existed in every crevice. I see something. Ethan shouted amidst the chaos. In the dim light, a tunnel opening glimmered ahead, radiating a soft, golden hue. Hope surged unbidden through her veins. They raced toward it, shadows snapping at their heels. As they reached the opening, Mia felt a sudden wave of warmth wash over her. We can do this, she urged. We'll break free together. Just as they surged through the opening, a deafening roar erupted behind them, a dark fury discharged by shadows that realized their prey was slipping away. No! Don't let go! Ethan screamed, panic spilling from his lips. I want tea. Trust me. They clung to each other tightly, hearts racing, adrenaline surging, pushing through the threshold. They poured every ounce of will into that final leap, but the shadows clawed at the walls behind them, thrashing in desperate anguish. A piercing wind howled through the tunnel, threatening to drag them back into the dark. Almost there. Mia shouted, summoning every ounce of strength, her breath rushing from her as they crossed the threshold into the light. The moment they broke through, the world erupted in silence. They collapsed onto soft grass, the night air bracingly cool against their flushed faces. Mia took a deep breath, the scent of dew and earth filling her lungs. Ethan staggered to his feet, panting. "Did we escape?" he questioned, wide-eyed, his voice quivering with uncertainty. Mia glanced back at the cave, shadows swirling menacingly at the entrance, but they stood safely in the purity of moonlight. "We did for now." A shiver ran through her as she realized the price of their escape. The shadows thrashed wildly just beyond the threshold, clawing at their freedom. "They'll come for us," Mia whispered, fighting back the swell of panic. "Then we fight," Ethan replied, fiery determination burning in his eyes. They understood now that they couldn't just run, there was no avoiding the darkness they'd encountered. They had become part of the story, a story written in shadows and haunted whispers. Hand in hand, they stepped away from the cave, the cool breeze brushing against their skin, a reminder of life beyond the grips of despair. Together, they turned to face their familiar neighborhood, the picket fence, and the well-kept lawns, now looking sinister in the twilight. It was time to uncover the truth, every secret hidden behind friendly smiles, every nightmare masked as idyllic normality. Their neighborhood held too many riddles they could no longer ignore. They resolved to gather those brave enough to stand with them. "We'll figure this out," Mia promised, her voice steady. "We'll face whatever darkness lingers." Ethan nodded, tightening his grip. Together. Amidst the vast night sky, stars twinkled like radiant beacons, scattering scattered fears as they walked back toward their homes. They'd fight together against the lurking shadows, the darkness would not dictate their fate. They'd find perspective in fear and strength in unity. Shadows may haunt their steps, but this time, they'd rewrite the ending. The final chapter of their story was only beginning, stepping defiantly toward the dawn. You need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. This is your chance to be part of the journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion.